So hello, my name's Rob and this is Cattle Rabbit Scale Model Studios, and welcome to part 2. In this video I'm going to show you what steps I took to get this 23-year-old Dreadnaught ready for the tabletop. If you didn't see part 1, I will link it in the corner now, but to recap, I took this 23-year-old worse for wear Dreadnaught, stripped it and cleaned it up, and in this part I'm going to show you how I finished off the miniature. As always, if you enjoyed this, chuck us a like and consider subscribing, as it really does help me out. Also, I will leave any additional information in the description below, but now that's out of the way, let's get started. The first step, and one I consider to be the biggest part of getting big miniatures done quickly, is getting those main colours down. With a wide range of coloured primers available, this is what I use to do most of the legwork. The main body was primed with Leadbelcher and the base with Mechanicus Standard Grey. Then firstly, I'm going to pick out any details. Things like cables, cylinders, the details around the sarcophagus, and certain joints with a selection of metallics and base colours. If I needed to tidy up at any point, I just use a bit of Leadbelcher to neaten up any splodges. I will also link my Grimdark Metallics in the corner for a more in-depth video. Do check it out, as it does go into a bit more in depth than what I'm going to explain in this video. However, now that's done, I can move on to washes. For this, I'm going to be using Ratling Grime Contrast, a paint that is rapidly becoming one of my favourites. It sits somewhere between Known Oil and Agrax Earthsade, and I just apply it all over. It's great for simulating dirt and grease in one pass. I did keep an eye on, just as it was drying, for any excess shade pooling in places. When this happened, I just soaked it up with a brush and moved the excess around. I also made sure the whole thing was dry before moving on to the next step. Now everything's dry, I relayered any colours to brighten them back up and gave some of the metallic parts a bit of a dry brush with a bright silver just to catch some of the edges. Now the metallics were done, I could move on to the armour panels, and of course mine will be joining my Imperial Fists 5th company, and the first step was to base coat each panel with thinned down Wraithbone until I had a good solid base coat. This step took way longer than what I thought it would have. Next up, I'm going to use Imperial Fists Yellow Contrast and Ironjawz Yellow Contrast for my power armour. I recently did a video on this, which I'll link in the top corner again now. Do check it out, as once again, it's the exact same method as I'm using here, and this video does go into a lot more depth. But basically, I'll be blending the contrast directly on the armour panels. I'm also going to only paint the arms and the lower half of the dread for the minute. Then I'm going to move on to the base. I do this so I can attach the model to the base and I don't have to keep handling it. Now for the base, what I'm going to do is wash the whole thing in Agrax Earthsade. Then when it's dry, I'm going to dab on grey with a sponge, getting progressively lighter each time and working towards the edge of each section. I'll then come in with a light grey and I'll just add some edge highlights just with a brush. Then it's just a case of picking out any small details like the bolter shells and the skull. I'll also run some very thinned Agrellan Earth into the gaps of the rocks he's standing on. I will add things like tufts, but I'll do that at the end. Now I can attach the model and move back to the rest of the miniature, finishing the power armour. However, I am still going to keep the arms separate for the time being, just so it's a bit easier to add transfers and things like that later. Once everything was nice and yellow, I dropped some Iyanden yellow contrast into the recesses on the armour. Followed by a edge highlight of Screaming Skull. Any splodges or chunky highlights I made will be turned into free weathering. I just add a small speck of rhinox hide into the middle of the highlight to help my mini look like it's seen a bit of combat. All that's left to do is add any transfers to the miniature and some extra purity cells. Then it's 2 thin coats of Abaddon Black for the rim, and we're calling this Son of Dawn complete. Thanks again for watching this video. Once again, if you enjoyed this, please do consider sharing this with a friend, dropping a like or a comment or subscribing. In the meantime, why not check out one of my other videos? But that's it for me in this one. I'll see you all next time. God bless and take care.